As you might know, European Professionals Network is an NGO based in Brussels who works to contribute to the career development of high-skilled professionals and to their personal and social empowerment as well. And one of EPN goals is also to raise awareness about social and political matters among professionals through activities, seminars, conferences, and so on. EPN is member of FEDAXIO, which is the umbrella organization who is hosting us tonight here. Tonight we have the pleasure to host a very special guest speaker for what promises to be a really interesting interactive speech. I'm talking about Martina Violetta Jung, so please let me briefly introduce her. Martina Violetta Jung is a German-born entrepreneur. She is the founder and force behind I Am Humanity, which is a holistic incubator dedicated to unveil the true calling of our world business leaders. She is also a trustee shareholder of a privately owned medium-sized company that is the worldwide market leader in specialized technical products for public transportation. And she's an author and publisher of business-related ebooks in English and German. So Martina tonight is here to talk about leadership through the formula success equal attitude per energy plus ability, and she will talk about this in a second, so I'm pleased to give her the floor.
Thank you very much, Lucia. The basic formula has grown over time in a mixture of exchange with people, observing organizations, and observing people behaving. But most of the time it came from observing someone struggling, being unhappy, feeling like this isn't really me. That gave the biggest insights. What the hell am I doing here, so to speak? So the basic formula is that success, however we will define success later, is a combination of your attitude towards life times the energy plus the ability you combine. Let me start with where it all starts, the very point in time that we are born. When the little baby, the you, the me, ends up in a cradle, there is something more than just flesh and bones and something that's growing. Every human being, I truly believe, has, if you believe in God, you could call it a God-given gift, or something that creates your uniqueness. And when we are a little child, we know exactly what that is. There is a Frenchman by the name Arnaud Stern. The gentleman is 91 years old today, and for more than 60 years he works with children in a very different manner. He has invented his own job, which he calls the painting game. And he has figured out creating an environment where children, or where groups of people between the age of 2 and the age of 70 come together to paint what they want. He observed them for more than 60 years and collected all their paintings. This gentleman is rather renowned. You'll find him on the internet, arnaudstern.com. And Arnaud Stern put that very basically, and he said, look, as a child, you know exactly what you want, and what you want, you are able to do. And vice versa. What you are able to do, you want to do. So that is where your energy is going. That is your God-given gift, so to speak. Unfortunately, when we grow older, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, things go bloody wrong. Because we have parents, we have teachers who believe that they know what we should learn. And all of a sudden, this little creature, this individual who has a God-given gift that is special, no other person has this on this planet, is forced into a pattern of learning things. So the heart of the child knows exactly, the right-hand part of his brain, which is the holistic view of the world, knows exactly what am I good at, what do I enjoy, where am I having fun. And then comes the grown-ups and say, no, you have to learn something decent, and this has to happen, and this has to happen. The older we get, the more we are forced into the pattern, because all our education is purely left-hand side of the brain. We are taught skills. So I differentiate when I talk about the ability in something that is God-given, that is your capability that no other person brought to this planet, and the skills that we are taught. We are very, very lucky if we belong to the people who from an early age on were allowed to learn skills that fit to our capabilities. For most of us, that did not happen. Because when we become a teenager, then the parents say, look, I want you to have a better life than we had. The generation of our parents most of the time had a hardship. Most of them went through war, feared for their lives, and they want their children to have a better life, to be more accepted in our society, to have a better education, to maybe go to university, to become a doctor, or whatever comes to your mind. That is something that the left-hand part of your brain tells you. That is the mind part, which tries to direct us through life. Unfortunately, that is the part where we create a lot of pain. Why is that? The gentleman Arno Stern said, I never allow in my painting groups same age together. So I have a group of 10 people painting together, and the youngest is 2 and the eldest is above 70. Why is that? I need to exclude competition. If you are a unique human being, then you can't compete with anybody else because you're different. I see that now in my family. I have a niece who is 6 years old and who enjoys painting. And because my sister is a single mom, she stays after school and is taken care of, and there are workshops, and Mondays she likes because there's painting. Now, since 2 weeks she doesn't like it anymore because she is not allowed to paint what she wants. She needs to paint what the teacher wants. And if you go into that school before Christmas, then you see of each group there are 24 Christmas trees and there are 24 snowmen, and they start to compete. And that is how our whole life went, and we need to compete and become better and have better marks in order to get the next job, and so we buy entry tickets into a new and maybe better world. This is what I call the mind and ego guided system, the skills, and our capabilities, that's what I would call the soul guided system that we are brought with. Do you have interventions, questions, things you would like to add at this point in time? You can also tell me I'm bloody wrong. I'm ready for everything. If you don't ask, I'm going to ask you. Can we share with each other, or would you like to share that? Do you feel that for you personally, this and this is a fit going through your career or your education? Or who of you had to redirect? And I make it easy for you. I had to redirect 6 times. And I always believed I had it right. I didn't. The young man in yellow.
Thank you. Of course I redirected. Of course I redirected. I think life is change and is about re-questioning yourself and redirecting. It just took me a long time before I realized that. And what I see here on the board is for me a fit how, if I look back, how it worked. Because I didn't recognize this dynamic, and actually, now that I see the dynamic, yes, I recognize it. Because this is how it worked for me, now seeing this laid out in this way. Yes, I redirected. Yes, and I thought that I was doing each time the right way. I think I'll be redirected a more couple of times, but that's right. Life is change.
Anybody else at this point in time? Good, then I move to the next point. So let's say we have an idea what our capability is. And maybe you don't even know today, but if you ask people who knew you at the time you were little, they will tell you what you have been busy with for hours, with fun and joy and excitement. They can give you a hint. Because that comes to the next level. Where in my life today does the energy for what I do come from? Does it come from the inside? That means the motivation, why I get up every morning, is a little voice inside of me telling me this is what you're supposed to do. And there is joy, and there is, your heart is getting warm. Does that go into it? Or does the motivation come from the outside? Because it is a reputable position or job, you get good money for it. In society say, yeah, you made it, you're really someone. Because if that is the case, then my motivation will go in waves. And basically, you're depending on drugs. And these drugs need to be reinforced every couple of months with a new bonus, or a bigger car, or salary, or we females buy a new handbag, or stuff like that. This, you can keep going forever. Unfortunately, the body doesn't like that. So if the energy has to come from the outside, half of the time at least we are forcing ourselves to do something. And we feel drained at the end of the day. And we feel drained at the weekends, and we feel like we need to sleep at the weekend because there is nothing left in it. If the energy comes from the outside, you have much less the feeling that you need a break, because you are not living somebody else's life, you live your own life. This is you. So, very big difference. What I say here is that these two add to each other. Meaning, in the worst case scenario, you do something that is not you, and the energy has to come from the outside. You do it for the money. And some people have to do it for the money because the payment they are getting, they need to maintain a family. Very basic stuff. And they say, look, basically, Martina, crap, I cannot afford the luxury of being myself. I have to earn a living, I have 3 kids, so crap. And I usually say, basically, you're right, but you can still start finding yourself 10 minutes a week, and then you make it half an hour. This might be a process that goes over a longer time, but there's a reason why you were born that way and with the capabilities you came to this planet. If it comes from the inside, I would put it to, this is soul guided. There comes energy, you don't have to buy this. If it comes from the outside, then somebody else is telling us that in our society that's a good thing to do. That's safe, you play it safe, and you save money, and you make sure that you have a decent future. If you look back into your own life, you have learned that what John Lennon says is life what happens to you whilst you're busy to make other plans. You cannot plan life. Our society tries to teach us that this is the way, because then we buy more insurance products and we save more money and we put more money into our pension, or we invest into a nice car. But basically we learn most of the time you feel that now you're settled. The apartment is ready or the house is ready and you feel everything could be nice now. From somewhere you are hit and you're thrown out of your space into another space. If you work as an employee, all of a sudden there's changes in the company is moving to a different place, you get fired, many things happen that were totally unexpected. A child gets sick, you need to reduce the way you work, what have you. So life can't be planned. If the energy comes from the inside, it's easy to find it differently. Because you can still maintain who I am, even if you have for a time to withdraw from what you do. Here again, this is your heart and the right-hand side of your brain talking to you. This is the left-hand side of your brain talking to you. And I would like to make an interval. I intentionally put ego, and I'm sure you've all heard of that word. To me, an ego is an overly active brain, an overly active thinking machine. And we all suffer from this, but we don't realize this anymore. So how does the ego work? Just imagine you have a crystal bowl where you can put things into. And in this crystal bowl is all you believe you need. A house, a car, a husband, children, what have you. The bowl itself are words. Mine, me, I own, I have. So just imagine that your crystal bowl is pretty much filled, and then comes the stupid idiots and takes something out. Like your position, your company car, your possibility to make a promotion. Now, here comes the ego mechanism, and he says, okay, hang on, this is quite simple. Either you put something else into this crystal bowl, which is at least of the same value to me, but better higher. Or I have only two options. The one is I become a victim. I blame the world outside that you did me wrong. Or, if I don't like that, I'll just fight the world out there. This is the way our ego works, and this ego is sending fear into our bodies. That's the opposite of what we came to on the planet when we were a little child. Does a little child know fear? No. It knows love, and is content and is pleased with himself. So, because we go through an education that's left-hand brain, that's facts, that's competition only, we learn we are created to be fearful machines. And the ego is an overly active way of thinking. That's all it is. And it is the little voice that tells you why the hell you should be afraid of the world outside there, why it is dangerous, why you need to work hard to make money. Until life helps you to get out of this. This is basically where most of us are busy with. Would you agree with that? That's how our lives work. Alexandra?
I do not totally agree.
Okay, throw something in. I can take a break, that's good.
No, I want you to make an experiment with me.
No? Just go on.
Yes, but I need you to do something with me. We are good friends.
Yes?
We know each other very well. How much am I worth to you? Say something.
You mean in terms of money?
Whatever.
I don't put anything on other people. A human being to me is a holy person.
Okay.
The only thing I would dislike about a human being is behavior, but not the human being itself.
Okay. Now stand by for me. Can you hold this for me?
Yes?
Okay, give me your hand. This is my car. Now, let's say you have all my crystal ball in your hands. How much from you to me, how much different am I now?
No different.
So what you just said is relative or depends on the people that are looking at you.
That is a very good point. It depends on the people who are looking at you and on how much you allow them to be right or wrong about you. Because what you just said is very valuable. You can, the society, the world outside, my classmates, my parents can have an opinion about how much I am worth, but I don't have to take it. Somebody else who wants to contribute. Are you writing a novel?
No. Listen.
Okay. Good. I would like to go to, from my perspective, the most important part when it comes to what will be the success or the result. And here I say it's not editing, it's times. And that is your attitude towards life. For whom am I doing things? If I do things for myself, and that is what most people on our planet do, then it means I earn money for myself, I'm successful for myself, and actually I don't care what the consequences for everybody else on this planet will be. As long as I make money as an investment banker, as long as I have my car and I have my living, I don't care if the t-shirt I'm going to buy for €5 has been sewn by a woman in Bangladesh who at the end of the month has $36 and hardly can survive on that one. So if I'm focused on what our education forces us to do, because the left-hand part of the brain only sees me and the others don't belong to me. I am here and the world outside is there and they don't belong to me. The right-hand side of the brain, the holistic part of your body, connects with everybody. If you observe a little child, 2, 3, 4 years, they find it easy to share. They give things away, they receive things. They don't make much noise on them. Until the very moment they say, this is your teddy bear. It's not for him, it's yours. Then we have a problem. Before, we don't have a problem. We live in a part of the world where I would say we are still at the upper end. No matter how many problems we have, no matter how cities change, like Brussels changes. For myself, I lived in Belgium for 12 years, until the end of 2009. You see many things happening, but still, here's no war. We can buy food. We can go to the doctor if we feel sick. For many people, that's not the case. So if I say I further focus on myself, everything seems to be fine. But I'm not coming to the problems of the world because I don't believe I'm part of the problem. I'm outside of the problem. I watch the problem in the news. I just feel unhappy about things. The next level you could, from my point of view, achieve is to say, I do the thing for the next. That means I include the people around me. I don't work only for me getting better, or my company does not only work for creating gain and distributing it to the ones I like. I go through the world and I have everybody involved in my point of view. If I look at the classical financial balance sheet of a company, then it only measures exchange values, but it doesn't measure the utility of what I'm doing. That means I measure what I can put into numbers, and I'm very narrow-minded on what kind of things I will look at. I will not look at the consequences to the environment. I will not look at the consequences towards the health of the people. I will not look at the consequences in the lives of people I don't see because they live on another continent. I've worked in different environments, from such as container liner shipping to warehousing. I was a lawyer setting up companies in China, and everywhere it was the same. If you don't belong to the group of people I can physically see and meet, actually I haven't got a clue what's going on. And then this became a bit troublesome, and people say, okay, now let's do something about it. It's good for our image to have corporate social responsibility, and we give 0.5% to the ones who don't make it. That won't work that way. But I believe you can even go one step higher. If you say, what is soul-guided, we could ask ourselves, why do I give my life to either, if you a religious person, to God, or to understand from a scientific point of view that quantum scientists tell us that everything belongs together, all is one. Even though you don't see the other person, you are energetically connected. The words we speak, the deeds we'll do, have an effect on the overall that's going on. Of course, risking putting God up here is quite tricky, because then we are immediately in a discussion is who is your God? And I will come back to that a little later, because that to me is a very tricky thing. But I know that in this room there are many people who do believe in God and who follow a certain religion. And I know that in these religions, the basic core of things, the rules that go around, are about active love. So when you come back to the starting point as a little child, then your God provided you with love into a life with certain capabilities. Why is that? Or you could say, if you're a non-religious person, the universe sent you into this life, and there are certain hints that you could do certain things better than others without placing yourself into competition. Now, if you add up this formula and you say, look, ability-wise, I don't know really what my capabilities were, but I'm a medical doctor, or I'm a bookkeeper. Energy-wise, well, basically, it comes from the outside. Actually, I work for money. And when it comes to what is your attitude towards life, sorry, I don't care about the rest of the world, then we shouldn't wonder what this success is in our own lives and in the world outside. If you do it differently, and you said, okay, I got derailed 6 times in order to find what I believe, and I've, say, some good indications that I'm pretty close now. I was sent as a little girl with certain capabilities, and my motivation truly comes from the inside, because in 2000 I said, to hell with all the positions, and to hell with all the money, I want to be myself. I become the person who I could possibly be, and that means I had to step out of certain patterns where other people tried to squeeze me into. I needed space. If I'm round, you can't squeeze me into a square pattern, and vice versa. But that's what we basically do whenever we read a job description. Someone is hammering you into a pattern, and maybe that fits for 60, 70, 80%, but a big part is not you. If you add these up and say, look, it's coming from my deepest heart, there is a mission inside of me, and even if this mission is only that I'm a teacher, I'm good in teaching whomever what, and I feel that the daily energy is coming from deeply inside. It doesn't matter how late it is, I'll get up. I want to do this. And then you add to it that you do it for yourself, for the other people, and for God or the whole universe, then I would say you have won the lottery. That's how I see it today. It took me a number of years to figure that one out. Didn't come overnight. But I saw the very same thing when I looked into the different companies I've been to. I want to take another break here and ask for contributions or more challenges.
Can I make a challenge? You started by explaining the myself parts with saying that most of the people here do things for themselves. When I look into businesses, I can see a lot of people there that do things in order so they can be praised by someone else. Therefore they say, I do this for someone else. If you look at relations and families, there are a lot of people who say, I do this for my kids. I don't do this for me, I do this for my kids. Or I do this for my boss. How do you relate that to doing things for myself?
That is the only point I haven't really figured out in a left-hand part, right or wrong. This could be here and this could be here. From the outside would be, why do I get up in the morning to do a job actually I don't like? I'm doing it for my kids. I need the money for my kids. I need to provide that they have a good education. I would put, at this point in time, I would put it here, it's coming from the outside, I'm not doing it for me. In the differentiation here, I've made here is, this is way beyond the little me, because that could include my family. This would include the world at large, and I don't care if my next person I haven't even met before. But I see someone in need, do I help? Yes. If I say, oh no, sorry, I'm too busy, I'm a very important person and I have to work on a project here, and oh, I'm sorry, you're just sick here on the street and you don't have anything to eat, I don't have 10 minutes to help you to go to a hospital, things like that. That is, at this point in time, where I would make, in my observation, could be totally wrong. Here to me is, myself is my little cocon, as I would put it. And this is the greater picture of our planet. In a visible and in a non-visible way.
I would like to make the distinction between God and religion.
Me too.
In mine, I think that religion is a system of power and is created to keep people small and to keep people imprisoned, while God is something completely different. So religion goes on the outside. It's a force, it's an outside force that keeps us under control. It's a power system. And that's not me.
Who agrees, disagrees? Come on, make it more lively here.
I agree. Schools and religion are in the outside. It's somebody's telling you what to do. And that's what religion is doing to you, telling you how to act, how to behave, how to be not yourself.
You can, the more we are in a great discussion now.
Yeah, well, I disagree. I disagree. In the sense that religion is a message, and this message is helping me and can also help others to to help to make decisions. So in a way, it's something which you can live internally, which is a path, towards an horizon that you never reach. And this is one thing. Now, where you might be, what I could agree at least with what you say, is that when you talk about an organization, and an organization is indeed always, whether it is religion, politics, football, schools, whatever, is always a system of power. This is part of human nature. So we should not mix up things, the organization, with the message and the path.
Yeah, I also tend to think like you do, in the sense that there is a difference between religion as a system that's kind of a model that, let's say, 1,000 and thousands of millions of people have to follow exactly the same way, and a personal experience, spiritual experience, which is not necessarily contradictory with religion, because you can have a religion but at the same time intervene personally in your religion, that is, live it in your own way, which makes it a very individual kind of practice or feeling. So it's a kind of something going between the two. If you're a religious person, there is a difference for me between a religious person who is not critical at all, just follows a kind of doxa, and a religious person who really has a spiritual experience and who kind of checks on his or her spiritual evolution. But that's of course a lot of work too. Now, I would like to talk about the myself. I agree, and I understand what you're saying, but at the same time I feel that it's not that easy either, myself. Because there's no such a thing as myself, as a pure myself. For example, philosophically speaking, if we think of the impact of language on the self, everything, thinking, the mind, and there I agree with you where we join the question, the issue of ego, which of course is a lot of thinking, what you think you are, and that goes through language. And that's not necessarily your own creation. It comes from your interaction with society and what you have learned. And so there as well. So you have to be working on it, and you have to be making certain selections for yourself. What is good for you and what's not. You have to have a critical and discriminating sense, I think. So, like soul, I like God's soul because it gives me a lot of freedom to think, to say, okay, this is where I find myself, in this spiritual space. And that can be even beyond language, beyond the mind. There I can talk of a pure, maybe, I don't know if you can talk of a pure self on that level. But,
well, to me there's a difference. If we talk on a spiritual level about God, and say God loves us all, no matter what religion we follow, then the consequence is that to God we are all the same, no matter how different we are, what we believe in, the way we try to work ourselves towards God. But that also means that the next will not be someone I attack or I fear, because I consider if God loves that person as well, why should I be of a different opinion? This, say, left-hand brain created myself. That's the one who feels endangered and who attacks. A person who attacks is in the very first place a person who is afraid and who would like to slap you and kill you before you could do the same. But the attacker is the one who is most fearful. If I can make this myself see that the next and God and the whole community is one, then the negative energy is gone. Part of my learning process in school was philosophy, and I believe all of you came across a gentleman called René Descartes, who said, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. That is the mechanism of the ego. That is not who we are. If Mr. Descartes, who was a medical doctor as well, would have been a good ironer, or a good baker, or a good butcher, he would have said, I iron, therefore I am. He didn't say that. Because he said, I think, therefore I am, he gave a human being that is good in thinking a better quality. And we see that in our working environment, because people who work with their head are considered more important and they get a higher pay than those who work with their heart and from their heart and who work with their hands. Look at all the services that are given to people by nurses, by women who bring children to life, purely, barely paid. Why? Because we believe thinking is more important than the rest? No, the center of the human being is here, and that is where your heart is, not up there. But the sentence of René Descartes, if we take that seriously, should rather be, I love, therefore I am. That is the sentence we all need, I believe. And it doesn't matter from where we come, because then I can put the fighting tools down. I can be in a room with people I don't know and just say, look, I love you all because in my perspective, we are creation of God. And if God thinks you're fine, why should I think differently, for God's sake? I would like to come back to what you said about religion and God. I had my own struggle with that. I was brought up as a Protestant, and at the age of 14 I received this Konfirmation in Germany. And for 2 years I was indoctrinated by the system, and they couldn't teach me what this was all about. But at the end of the 2 years there was a ceremony, there was a party, and you got lots of presents. I came across the very same thing with one of my godsons who visited me, who's now 17 years of age, and we wanted to go on a journey which we do each year together, and he said, I don't want to go into a journey with you this year, I want to know about God. And I said, wait a minute, you have had confirmation 3 years ago. And he said, yeah, but I didn't learn anything, except for certain rules. But they didn't touch my heart, and I don't want to find out what my life is about, and I'll figure out that mom and dad, who are about 40-something, still haven't figured out what it is about. So I want to find that out now. Because what I see out there from the next generation isn't rather what I want my life to be. And I think that's a big challenge today. So at my life, at the age of 25, I was so upset with the way priests, Protestant priests believe and behave that I said, I'm sorry, I'm stepping out of the system. But still I felt a deep urge to find out what is that being and where is my connection? And it took me a number of years, and I found it in a completely different way. I got an education and as a Reiki master over a couple of years, and I went to Japan for that. The good thing about this, I am in dialogue with God and other people who believe in God, but nobody's forcing me into a system. I don't like systems where people misuse the systems to do other things with the systems, which we see in certain religions more than in others. On the spiritual path, to me that could be helpful, but it doesn't have to be. It's a personal choice, which I can respect. Unfortunately, we look on the me and the outside of religion today, and when we look into the newspapers, we hear things about religious practices or how priests or certain people who say, I am speaking in the name of, do things that we all don't want to see. And unfortunately, we create a discussion about then the majority of the believers of that religion that goes completely wrong. Then I'm back at my left-hand side of the brain, which says, uh-oh, here's my fear. You're taking something out of my crystal bowl. This is dangerous. I'd rather attack you now. Good. Who would like to add something or challenge, please?
Maybe just a little challenge, or I don't know, because I don't know. But, but like, I don't know how many believers there are here behavior and non-believers. But sometimes I tend to think that when it comes to our own attitude, behavior, and how we want to take responsibility for our life, how we want to go ahead and our destiny and all that, maybe it all converges in one point, which is like, okay, I can, for example, as a believer, I believe in God. But somebody who doesn't believe in God, who is either atheist or has a completely different kind of spirituality, that doesn't mean that that person doesn't believe. That person has a belief.
I don't believe. I know.
Yeah. So you don't.
No, I know.
But
I know where we come from. I know where we go to. So I don't have to believe. I know.
You mean in a religious sense? You don't have to believe.
I'm not religion.
Yeah, but okay. So, but I mean, belief is belief, even if you don't believe in a religious sense. But you cannot. You do have a strong belief, a mission, what you think is your mission, and what you want in life. I mean, all that needs a big belief. So, in the end, we do converge in a belief. The belief is important. When you take an action in life, a big action that maybe takes your whole lifetime or part of your lifetime, that involves a mission, that involves goals and a lot of effort, I can hardly imagine that you can do it without a belief, without belief. So
I believe you're talking about the very same thing, in the sense that a person who is very sure about that one believes without
naturally believes, or not
Yes.
naturally. It's a natural belief.
Yes.
So
That's how I would put it.
What about the big picture?
What about the big picture?
If you have, do you need to believe if you have the? Do you need to believe if you have the big picture?
That is a very tricky and dangerous thing at the same time. I believe, or say, my experience tells me that to find this when you've lost it as a young person takes an awful lot of time. You have to come back to your heart, because you are thinking dominated.
And courage.
Hang on, we come to the courage. That means if I define the big picture world through thinking, the likelihood that I say who is right and who is wrong, who belongs onto the right side and who belongs onto the wrong side, is what creates a lot of misery in our world. The more I sense that you have an inner instinct, an intuition that tells you who you are, and the energy comes from inside, the easier it is to see the big picture without judging, without putting somebody outside of your big picture. If a big picture excludes others, it's not a big picture, it's your fearful voice.
Ego. Exactly.
And then it comes what you said, you need courage to make that step from your head who's telling you for years, be careful, that is your competitor, or you can make it and you don't make it, or you don't get the money. You need to have the courage to leave that, so to speak, left-hand part behind and step into a different world where the right-hand part of your brain says everything belongs together, and the heart says you're right. You can trust your intuition.
In my opinion, the courage also has to do with the fact that you have to take the decision to leave aside all the values that have been told to you by persons that you respect. Your parents have told you things, your school teachers have told you things, other persons have told you things, and most of the time these persons, there are a lot of persons there that you respect a lot from the point of view of a child. And at a certain point in time, when you are confronted with this paradigm, you say like, hang on, are you asking me to say no to a value that my mother told me was a basic foundation of life? that takes courage. So, and that is ego, in my opinion, that is ego as well. That ego tells you, this has been told to you by very important persons. Don't forget this. Keep it as your value for the rest of your life. And what the ego does not tell you is that these values have been told by their parents and their parents and their parents and their parents, and maybe originated 10,000 years ago. Because all the parents told, etc., etc. And maybe in 2015, for me that was about 2004, right? Something comes along that tells you, hang on, decide for your own what your values are, and have a fresh look, a big picture on the values that you have been told, and decide for yourself if these are still okay for you or not. And if not, put them aside without judgment, because they served you up until then. So I think there's a big part of courage there, at least that was for me, to put aside values that have been taught to me by persons that I respect.
I think my question is connected to the courage. So, where does the will stay? Because if we have a mismatch between capabilities and skills in a certain person, then it takes a human will to realize that and to make the change as you did in your life. But there are many people that do not have obligations for raising kids and so on, but they still don't they still don't take advantage of their capabilities, although they may realize them. So this is the will missing. So where does it stay in the picture?
Good. I would put it in between here. And I can tell you that the majority of the people, because the fearful voice of the skill is so dominant, they don't dare to do that. So here I call it an intervention of God will give you a big kick that you fall on your nose. I'm a good example of that. I come from an ordinary working class family. Never ever in that family did someone have an A level. I was the first to go to university, studied at 2 Germans and 1 Chinese university, and I was a lawyer, a business lawyer specialized in China. So I helped German companies to set up their businesses in China. And I believed I have made it. I was constantly tired. I had 70 hours working week. I was traveling back and forth. But I didn't want to see it until I had something that today you would call a burnout at the age of 32. That word wasn't known then. The body completely shut down. I was in bed. I wasn't able to drink, eat, or do anything by myself. And my brain was at the size of a Mickey Mouse. I couldn't follow the news. I couldn't understand what was going on. So my whole system collapsed in kind of saying, you idiot, I'm not following you anymore. I was very fortunate at that situation that a Chinese doctor, a holistic doctor, treated me, and the first sentence he said is, you have lost your center. This is not you. I was arguing with the gentleman very hard that he made a stupid mistake in the diagnosis. I told him that it took me 13 years to reach the position where I am now, that I'm one of 3 business lawyers in Germany who could do that I've made it, and he couldn't possibly tell me that I was wrong. I was fighting this gentleman, and he was just smiling at me in a very kind way. It took me 9 months, as long as a pregnancy, to step out of my fear pattern into maybe I love myself. And maybe I'm also willing to look at the penalty and the prices I pay to live that professional life I did until today. Would have that not happened, I might have been a very unhappy lawyer. I'm not, for many, many, many years. So the will is something, it's either depending on how strong willpowered you are. I can tell you, when I phoned my father and said, Daddy, by the way, I returned my lawyer's license, I could hear him fall dead at the other end of the telephone. Because to him, that was a status, a secure, well income, and how on earth could his daughter give that away? Completely stupid. But then he saw me 6 months later. I had recovered my health. I didn't need the weekend anymore just to sleep to recover. So the good thing is, your brain can tell you a lie, your body can't. If you feel physical illness, if you constantly feel tired, your body is sending signals, you stupid idiot, you mistreating me. That is a good sign for your will to change your will.
When we look at the modern life, so I suppose it could be wrong, but more than 90% of the people working here, working at the moment, I think they're not happy with their job. They're not doing what they want to do, actually. They have to do. Maybe it's more than that. I speak to sometimes my friends, I know the environment, and none of them are happy with what they are doing. So how we could change this? Because if everybody tries to do what they want to do, is there enough space? Is there enough job for everybody?
Yes.
So it's a difficult challenge for me.
I told you at the very beginning about this 91-year-old gentleman by the name of Arno Stern. Arno Stern was born in 1924 in Kassel in Germany, and because they were Jewish, they had to flee the country when he was 9 years old. And he worked, just after the war, he was put into a children's home and kind of, this is your first job, for God's sake, keep the children busy. And the only thing he could find was paper and pencil. And out of that, he realized that he had to invent his own profession that wasn't there. Turn back the page before the Second World War in Western Europe. The majority of the people were self-employed. They worked into something that had to do with nature. Because of what happened after the Second World War in Western Europe, companies became bigger. They were not 5 to 10 people, and very, very flexible. They became bigger and bigger and bigger. And our parents came from a much more troubled background than we live today. So they say, oh, you do a good thing if you start to work with this big company because that is security. Security is the fear word. It means I'm afraid of my own life, so I better take security. What is the way out, you've asked me, and if there are enough jobs? Yes, there are. The way out is that you have a conversation with yourself about love and fear. And all the words that were put into you in terms of external expectations that come from other fear patterns. Our parents are much more fear-driven than we are. They had the pure hardship. To them, most of them meant that tomorrow they didn't know whether they would still live. Our world is very different. One of our fear patterns is, maybe I don't have enough money then. Or maybe, Martina, I have a rough idea what I would like to do, but I don't have the money. You don't have to switch from 0 to 100. You can start that partly. But I can assure you, because you're, from my experience, a child of God, there is enough places to work and to bring in what makes you special. The ones who are making us afraid are the big companies who tell you that you are nobody if you don't work for them. That's the biggest bullshit we can believe. If you would have told me that after I dropped my career as a business lawyer, where I would be today, I would have declared you a stupid idiot. I would have apologized. I would have to apologize today for this, of course. But basically what I learned is that if I step over the limitations my parents gave me, and just in the beginning a very tiny one, I looked around and I wasn't dead, I was still alive. I had more space to breathe. Then I dared to make a bigger move. Oh, Mom and Dad told me that if I would do that, I'd be dead. No, I'm not. It even feels a lot better. So what Wouter said at the beginning, the courage, if it doesn't come from your head, but your heart gets warm and tells you that this is what you want to do, you can believe that this is the path. And once you step on that path, there will be an awful lot of help. Our parents steered us into the direction, not because they don't love us. They wanted to protect us from more harm. But they never learned what their way was. Most of them, at least. If you turn that around and find the complete opposite, people we admire in the world, even the generation above us, people who've realized themselves, look at designers we admire. They look crazy, they behave crazy, and they enjoy what they're doing. The Armanis, the Lagerfelds, can there be thousands of them? Of course. We only look at 2. What we have to get away from is that somebody else knows what is good for your life. The only person who can write the book of your life is you, because it comes from the inside. Nobody else can see that. They can give you hints, what you did when you were little and when you were free of fear. But nobody else can really tell you. You have to write the own book of your life.
You know, to address your point, are we depending on the system, or can we add or anticipate our life? The problem is that, am I free? Of course, in North Korea, in some countries, a system is locking your freedom. But when you create something that can add value, not only to you, but to society, then your space of freedom is bigger. So you show the path to what is possible to do. I've been exploring that with 3 children in Congo, with soldier kids in conflict areas, and there was space in this terrible environment. There was space for freedom, even if there were bombs falling, etc. So I still believe if we lose this piece of freedom, we lose a piece of our humanity and the survival of our own, let's say, mankind.
You mentioned books. I take the liberty and the freedom to tell you that Martina has written a book which is called Take Your Work and Shove It. That's the English title. It's about exactly what you express. A lot of people are close to burnout. A lot. It is an underestimated phenomenon in the market, and it's growing. And it comes from a complete disconnect in that system. When your heart feels like, I'd like to sing, I'd like to play music, and in the daytime job, you feel that you have to do this, I don't know what, accountant job, and you dig yourself into that accountancy job, and your brain and your ego tells you that's the only way of surviving. You're heading full speed towards that burnout. If you create a little space in your life, even half an hour per week, which hopefully then rapidly grows into much more, you give that heart feeling, that sense of I feel joy with what I do, even if it starts with only half an hour a week, you feed that me being that way, which is part of the bigger picture. Because then, in that half an hour, you feel joy, the true joy. And if you're in that true joy, you forget that 40-hour accountancy job. And that can grow. And that is what I would like to suggest, based on the fact, will there be enough jobs for everyone? That is a construction of the mind based on that there is a lack of jobs. Look at how Richard Branson started. Richard Branson, the owner of Virgin, right? Look at how he started, by following his guts, by taking risks, and by passion. He did what his heart told him to do. And look at specifically the part how the airline Virgin Atlantic started. That is absolutely amazing. There is, in my opinion, job for everyone. Follow what your heart tells you to do, where the fun is, and go for it. And it's no switch 0, 100%, it's no on and off. That's what I did a couple of years ago. I started my own, I have a full-time job, but I started my own company, doing little things, and a bit more, and a bit more, and a bit more. And I hope soon that will turn. And then I'll be doing 100% where my passion is. And at the same time, in my full-time job, I decided to make fun of it. Not in the negative sense of the word, no, but to enjoy doing that, and leaving aside the parts that I didn't like.
I learned that his company is called the Conscious Corporation. You might want to talk to him.
I would like to challenge it a little bit, not much, because it can be tricky too, you know, because it's not given to many people to really have a passion that they're very clear about, that is so strong that they go ahead and go, you know, step by step, to very concentrated on that one path. That's not given to everybody. I mean, I wouldn't say mostly, but it happens a lot that you are kind of attracted by this and that and that, and a few. Sorry.
In my opinion, that means that it's there, but they haven't realized it. They forgot about it.
The fact that they go in different directions.
No, the passion.
Yeah, but they also have the impression that this is a passion and this is also a passion, and that's why they are not consistent.
It's try and error. It takes some time.
And it can, so there's no, it's, they don't persevere. Like you're doing this for some time. It happens a lot with artistic skills, for example.
What I can recommend is, before you jump on that, you can go for 10 years to trial and error. Invest time to talk to people who know who you were and how you behaved when you were little. You get very, very good indications. And it is not a job description that they can give you. You were no job description when you were a child. You were a very happy human being, and that did something very special. Unfortunately, with most of us, these capabilities were not supported by skills.
I would just like to add one remark about this big picture thing. For me, personally, a big picture for me is to find my life balance, is to have a life balance. I don't know what, maybe for everybody it's different, what life balance is.
Well, no, we thought about the big picture is the whole of the planet, including everybody who lives, and everything that breathes and everything that contributes to life.
Somehow, to answer to just, or add something to what has just been said, if you allow me to do so, I already told you about the story of the quarry. The head of a quarry goes into his quarry, see how the people work, and he goes to the first man and asks, how's life? And the guy is busy with the hammer making stones ready for buildings, and he says, well, I'm earning my life, I'm here 8 hours a day making stones ready for buildings. Oh, very good, keep going. He goes to another guy, And the guy is also with the hammer making stones ready for buildings, and he says, how's life? Well, chief, I'm the very best guy who can make stones ready in the whole area, even in the whole country, even in the whole continent. Look, I make 25, really exactly the same. I'm the very best stone making guy you can have. Oh, very good, keep going. Then he goes to a third guy, and the third guy is also busy with the hammer, making stones ready, and says, hey, how's life? And says, well, it's okay. What do you mean it's okay? What are you doing? And the guy with the illuminated face looks to the chief and says, I'm building a cathedral. All three are doing the same job. They just have another point of view of what they are doing. And making stones ready is not an easy job, or to my opinion, you can have the big picture or see more than only what you are doing and what you are doing daily.
I want to say something about the ego. Indeed, you define it for the outside world, and also Eckhart Tolle says that it's compulsive thinking. But how can we dissolve, or how can we ensure that once you become yourself, that ego doesn't exist? And isn't it passion also part, including ego there?
No. Ego can still exist, we just have to downsize it a little. Passion is something that you feel physically in your body as warmth. You can see the eyes, shining bright. The ego is a fearful voice. Whenever you hear yourself talking to yourself in fearful words, then you know the ego is busy. The passion sees the possibility. The passion says you will make it. The passion says, never mind, you failed. Edison took 1,000 times to figure out how a light bulb works.
But that's again compulsive thinking, just it's in another direction. It's mind there, present. Even the passion.
The question is what comes first. The mind always works. The question is who is the servant and who is the boss. In a life that the being of yourself directs, the heart is the boss, this is the servant. In a life that's not you, this is the boss and this has to shut up. That's all I can give you as a hint. To me, this is work in progress. I'm sharing with you what I have learned so far, but I'm still learning, and I'm very grateful for what you have contributed. John?
What I would like to contribute, to come back to your point, and also maybe to your point, is that if we are not happy with our job, it's also because we still do the same, but instead of building a cathedral, we're just destroying the world. Then if we realize, or we don't want to realize, that by what we do, by contributing to our company, we're actually destroying the world, humanity, our ecosystems, just because we have to produce more money at the end of the day for, I don't know who, but at least this is what we do, this is the target of our company, then this might, of course, make us happy and unhappy, I would say. And so it's not really what we do, is that also what is the purpose of the organization I'm working with? Do I want to know, or I prefer not to know? So it's not me, it's the boss in this case, but if you are the guardians of a concentration camp, you say, well, I just follow the orders, that's what they said, right? And still, can you be happy by doing this type of job? Now, of course, we are not guards of concentration camps, but if we're working for companies that throw away the food, if you're working in the food distribution, that are just not caring about anything because we just have to produce more, pharmaceuticals, chemicals, even producing cars, extracting oil. The way we do it is possibly making us unhappy because what we do is just not right, it's not what we should do. That could be a reason why we're not happy and why so many people are unhappy.
We are at the phase of how am I figuring out what is it? What I also learned is that when you make that step you will, so to speak, lose many things that are you in today's life normal and part of you. If it is belonging to you what you lose, it will come back through a different direction. If it doesn't belong to you, it won't come back, but something else would come that do you an awful lot more good. That's my experience. For example, I worked for companies. I was a couple of years an employee. As a lawyer, I was a managing director of a shipping company, CEO of a logistics group. So you have a steady income, so to speak. The people I know who've realized themselves created their own job description, and it's mostly a composition of 3-4 things at the very same time. I start a business, I write, I publish books. I just started my own publishing company last week. But for example, what energized me, a year ago, a friend of mine died tragically within 6 months from lung cancer. And she was one of 2 shareholders of a substantial medium-sized German company that belonged to her and to her brother. And they did something to me that was extraordinary. They decided that they won't give the company to the next generation. Because there was no next generation, but there was grandchildren possible. And they decided they wouldn't do that. Instead, they asked trustee people to take part of their shareholdership to run the company into the future. So I was overwhelmed by the request whether I could, as a trustee shareholder, take responsibility as the owner of a company with some 2,400 people across the world and who's the market leader by 85% market share of what they're doing, and they're doing it really well. From China to Brazil to Hungary to Germany and other countries. Now, what fascinates me about the job is I know how to run a big company. That's not the issue. But here it's not about me. I'm neither an employee nor am I an owner. I don't get any benefits out of that except a pre-agreed fee that I'm there. So the management treats me as an owner, and on paper I am, but I don't take what owners take today. And that is a very healing experience, not only for myself, but for other people in this company. They say, hey, I can call you anytime, you are there, you're traveling, you're approachable, you take as much responsibility as if you would own, and on paper, if I go to the register of the company, you do, but you don't exercise your right. And that is, I believe, what the step also should be. The people with the capabilities should do what is needed. We need to break free from our limitations of ownership, having something. Our planet is at the verge of imploding in terms of misuse of nature, of people, of wars, of... I just read that 56.7 million people are refugees at this point in time. That's more than the population of England. That's roughly 6 out of 8 Germans being a refugee. Boom. This is what we have to fix. If we see the big picture, then there are plenty of jobs to fix that. It's not in our daily pattern that takes what it wants and destroys and takes a blind eye on what we destroy there. It's in healing the world that the jobs will be that we need. The strange thing is, once you dare to step across that little line that said, oh, don't do it, don't do it, things become easy. And all of a sudden, people come towards you. I would have never expected that somebody makes that or asked me to do that 3 days before she dies. And at first I felt, what? Of course you can't say no to someone who just dies. But going through the process now with all the people in the company shows I can add value. I'm gaining, in a, so to speak, owner's perspective, very little for that. in terms of money, but in terms of what I learned for myself, what I can contribute. It tells a bigger part of who I am, and that is important.
Just also to add to what you just said, fixing the world, I know the story of a man whom I'm very close to. He's in Luxembourg. He's actually the boss today of the chain that is distributing organic food in Luxembourg. And he started 30 years ago by turning his father's farm with his brother into an organic farm. Everybody said, you are mad. And now today, this is a company that is employing 250 people. They have 10 shops. They are doing also, they have also importation business. They are also doing buildings that are ecological. And when you talk to him and you ask him how he did that, he said, I just did what was necessary. And nothing was planned. I just did what was necessary. So I think that's maybe a hint on what we could do without having ego. Just what do we feel is necessary.
Look into our world today. There's so many things that we read in the newspaper every day we dislike. Find out what energizes you, what your capabilities is, and be a solution. Be a part of the solution.
I think a very, very important factor there is creativity, right? If you translate this to a business company, for instance, the company that I work for, apart from my own business, but that's not important. The company that I work for wanted to enter the Belgian market with a product which was already sold by 15, 20 other companies. No references, no customers. We just were one of the lots offering a product. So if you're faced with that situation, what do you do as a company? You redefine the market. You create creativity, your own market space. So what do? You invent new words, you go down the marketing way, right? And you create this new market space where nothing is yet. And be the first in there. And who is the first in the market is alone in the market. So this is something that all companies do today. How to enter a market space? Define your new market space. Create a new product. In other words, you already have the product and you know what it does. You rebrand it. Right? So this is actually a sort of business translation of how to enter fearful territory. I can't do that. Impossible. You got 20 competitors there. You'll never sell. Oh no? Hang on. Challenge me. Let the creativity do its work. Redefine yourself. Redefine the market. And go. And that's where creativity comes in. And creativity sparks passion. Because you will feel, yes. You can do a very simple exercise on that. If you hesitate, shall I do this or that? You put down a chair there, and you put down a chair there. And that is your yes, and that is your no. And then let the thoughts come. Right? Your creativity thoughts, yes, I will do this. And then the fear, ego thoughts, no, you can't, this is going to cost money. What will people say? And you let them come. All the thoughts, without judging. And you go and sit there, and you tell yourself, yes, I'm going to do this. Yes, there's potential. Yes, I'll go for the market. Yes, I don't care what my parents say. I'll do it. And then you go up, you walk around, clear your energy, and you go and sit on the other chair. No, you can't do this. It costs much too much money. You have no time. Everyone else is doing this. And you let it come until your mind is empty. And then you go and sit there, and go and sit there. And you ask yourself, which chair feels the best? feels, and you have your decision. Clear your mind, and then let this speak, and you know where to go. And where this leads you, there is no shortage of jobs. There is no shortage of oil or whatever, or money. No. Because what you radiate from here comes back tenfold. Try it. I challenge you.
A short question. I really want to get your opinion on that. Okay, you want to do something that you're passionate, but you don't have enough capability for that.
Capability or skill?
Capability, ability.
I'll tell you something.
Which is God-given, as you said. So you could improve, you could develop your skills, but you know that you don't have the capability. But you want to do that. So
I'll tell you something. In school, I was declared a complete idiot in languages and a complete idiot, even worse, in art. So drawing something was, the teacher frightened me. I wasn't able even to draw a cup or a flower. Lack of capabilities, right? Good. I believe this teacher. I even believe the ones who told me that in languages I was crap. I speak 4 languages fluently and I write in a couple of languages. But the most fearful part, that I was an idiot in art, that went a couple of weeks ago. Due to a change in the situation of my parents, I relocated close to my parents roughly a year ago. And opposite the street opened an art school by a lady about my age, and there were lessons in drawing. And I had the guts to go in and take private lessons in drawing for €30 for 2 hours. And I draw now heads, and I've started to draw paintings. You can judge for yourself. Next week there will be a new website of the publishing company. It's called healingstories.de, and in the blog I'm writing there is an eye, just one eye I've painted myself after 4 weeks. That to me, and the lady who composed that had a critical look at it, because I said, look, if it's crap, just throw it out. She didn't. That told me that maybe I wasn't judging my capabilities right. So the answer to you is, before you judge your capabilities, go to a teacher who is nourishing what can come out of you, instead of telling you what you're not good at. That is another basic problem. We get so much hammered on the head for what we are not supposed to be good at. Sorry, how on earth does he or she know? Make sure that what you believe today, you haven't got the capabilities, let alone the skills. Just don't listen and give it a try with a teacher who is encouraging and helping you. I'm just doing this painting and drawing for myself because there comes a lot of joy out of it. I don't know what will happen to it, but I will definitely give it another go and put another of these drawings onto the blog the next time I write. And if someone tells me it's crap, then it's a question of if it is the technical skill or the artistic skill. The artistic skill we can argue about. The technical skill I'm still learning. But I will not exclude today that my capability is being able to draw. Have a nice evening, and that's all for tonight.
We thank you again. I believe it was really interesting and very active speech and debate. And so we want to offer you a little present to thank you again. And it was a pleasure and an honor to have you here. And we wish you all the best for your career and your life.